It's 9 p.m. and we're all talking about the North Bank Summit show. So, firstly, welcome to my two guests tonight. Making his debut is the Arsenal domination, Dom. How you doing, mate?
Very well, very well. Hopefully, I'll be more Christos Zorlis than Lenny Euro. Going the way of Reece Nelson, or am I going to stay?
You might get a free transfer by the end of it. Get you off the wage bill.
Yeah, see you later. Hang on, you don't pay me.
That's true. And good evening to Kieran. Back again. How you doing, mate? Oh, you're on mute. I can't hear you, Kieran. No,
he was doing well in the bit behind the scenes. So
yeah, I think you might need to come out and come out. There's our first technical hitch for the night. No. We was all good. I was the problem in the backstage.
Yeah. I was going to say.
Can you hear me now?
Hopefully these things won't come.
Here he is. Here he is. We can hear you, mate.
It wanted to connect the microphone to my phone for some reason. So apologies about that.
Idea, mate. No idea. How you doing?
I'm good. Good. Again, surviving the British summer with now pissing down of rain. So that's different from last week, wasn't it, when it was nice and hot?
Yeah, I wish the old hot weather was back now. Do you know what I mean? All that moaning about how hot it was. I want it back now. I want it back. Let's do some good evenings. Good evenings, Catherine, who's in the chat. Just in time for it started at quarter. It was going to start quarter to the hour. We did change it later on. We was actually trying to go live on TikTok and Instagram. But yeah, we're still not where we need to be yet, unfortunately, guys. But we are looking to go there very soon. Good evening to old Scotty boy, the old Tottenham man himself. How you doing, mate? I'll probably get you bragging about his 5-1 victory at Charlton yesterday. Good to see you, though. Good evening, Tarek. How you doing, mate? Good to see you on, brother. Going to gatherings in the house. Good evening, sir. How you doing, mate? Good to see you on. But yeah, look, we're going to obviously talk a lot of things all about Arsenal tonight. And we're going to rewind back quickly to Friday night. But before I do that, just a few more good evenings. Obviously, Sam was due to host tonight, but to put out late on. But hopefully we'll see you back next week, mate. Good evening to Lauren. Good to see you on. And good evening to Julie as well. Always good to see you on as well. But yeah, we're going to go back to last Friday night. And I'm going to go to you first, Dom. Coventry City, home game, first game of the season, kicking off the old Premier League 2026-27 season. Strolling apart, really, weren't it? It was what we kind of expected, a comfortable victory. And 3 points, and we've started again.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was an easier game than I thought it was going to be. I mean, Arsenal obviously superior in terms of quality to Coventry, but these early games are often quite difficult. We saw it with the other results over the weekend. Hull winning, Ipswich winning. I know those two were at home and Coventry away, but it shows how difficult those opening day fixtures can be. Fulham even running Chelsea close. And I do think the early goal sort of helped, but Arsenal looked really, really comfortable. They dominated the game, controlled the game in a way that we know Mikel Arteta likes to control the game, and even if they haven't got the ball, kind of feel comfortable. But they did it with a purpose, and I thought that's kind of the message I've really taken from the last two games. Really, is that purpose. Even when we haven't got the ball, we've dropped and got into position quickly, which we know Mikel Arteta does very well. But as soon as we've got that ball, we spring early, and I think a lot of that has come from Miles Lewis-Skelly in midfield, but also Martin Odegaard's return to form. He seems to have found his confidence and rhythm and happiness again, and I think that is making a big difference. And Arsenal, once they got that early goal, lovely finish from Kai, sort of stroking it home, it did become really, really easy, and I think there was some good performances, and I think had Arsenal wanted to, they could have gone on and won this 5 or 6 more, but I think they played within themselves in the second half, but deliberately. It wasn't just playing a little bit scared like at times last season, where that pressure I think was getting to them. It was deliberate to conserve energy for the long season ahead and get lots of minutes in the legs. I felt almost all of those subs were kind of pre-planned if things were going well, rather than anything else, to get minutes in the legs of players. Declan Rice coming off, Calafiori coming off, Eze coming on. Those sorts of things. I just felt re-planned and a really nice, comfortable start to the season. And 6 goals in 2 games, all from open play. Who'd have thought it from set piece FC?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the interesting thing now, isn't it? Like the last two games we have played, like 3-0 against City, 3-0 against Coventry, no set piece goals. And I think you brought up a really good point there about Lewis, since Lewis Skelly's coming to the team. And we look at the back end of last season, that Fulham game, when he injected that spring, just that spring step, weren't it, in midfield and forward play thinking. Do you know what I mean? Just getting the ball early, breaking the lines quickly and getting the ball to the right players. It's going to be tricky for him now, isn't it? Because obviously he's going to have Bruno breathing down his neck. Apparently, there's a chance that he could be back for Villa. Do you see the shirt at the moment in midfield for Skelly's to lose, or do you think that actually he, against a team like Aston Villa, he will go with like the experience of Declan Rice and Bruno?
I'm sure we'll go on to it later. I would go with very minimal changes for Villa, to be honest with you. And I think Miles Lewis-Skelly deserves to keep his place on form, for sure. And I think what you can do now is ease Declan Rice and Bruno into the team. You know, I don't think Bruno's injury is overly serious. I think that was a precaution for Mikel Arteta. And again, it's what we want to see, not risking players unnecessarily when you've got a squad like that. You know, you can afford to be that little bit more cautious. But Miles Lewis-Skelly is playing so well, you know, that he does deserve to keep that place. And I think that I'm being very simplistic in this, but that balance between sort of the hard running that Bruno and physical power that Bruno Declan can bring, coupled with that sort of different style of playing through the lines with the passing, and I know Bruno can do this, so I am being very simplistic, you know, that Miles Lewis-Skelly or Zubimendi brings, I think, is a lovely sort of juxtaposition and brings real balance to it. But for me, if I'm bringing Bruno back in, I'd take probably Declan back out and, you know, ease him back in post World Cup, because obviously he has a big season last season and a full on summer. I mean, that was my only other surprise, was seeing Bukayo Saka start that game. But we'll see. For me, but as I say, to answer your question, Miles keeps his place. No question for me.
No, I totally agree with you. I think at the moment, Skelly, that is Skelly's place at the moment. He's earned it. And I don't want to go into the Champions League draw, but what I do want to say is I think with the Champions League draw now and seeing some of the fixtures that we have got, and I'll go to you on this one, Kieran, like rotation is going to be absolute key now, isn't it? Because when you think that we're going to be facing the likes of Real Madrid, Borussia Dortmund, Bayern Munich. Did I see Napoli? Was it Napoli?
Yeah, we've got to go to Naples, yeah.
Yeah. And Real Betis, who we played, and they showed what good side they were in pre-season. That rotation, that midfield is going to be massively key, isn't it, over the months of October and November into December?
Not even just for midfield. I think it's going to be the whole squad. This is why we've built the squad we've got. It's really interesting about Miles Lewis-Skelly. I think he plays. I think there's no point risking Bruno for that match. I think you're better leaving Bruno for the Chelsea game, because I think that's going to be a tougher game. But I really think he's probably going to utilise the squad. You know, we've still got Marino and Zubimendi. You know, Zubimendi, especially for first half or first 2/3 of the season, was one of our main guys. I think we'll utilise him a lot more. You still got to have the Eze Odegaard conversation as well. I do think we'll see a lot of squad rotation come Champions League, even in the bigger games as well. I don't think you'll maybe have a Declan Rice and Bruno start those games automatically. Maybe for Madrid, but maybe not, say, for Napoli or for Dortmund. But it's a nice problem to have all of these players available to us. It's not something, obviously, we would have ever thought about 3-4 years ago. What I thought was really interesting, just to pick up on something, where in the Coventry game, all of our players looked fresh. No one sort of looked completely out of it. And when you think of how we ended the season as well, where, you know, it was some tired, lethargic sort of performances, this was a team that looked fresh and ready to go, which is always positive to see. And again, it's now down to Mikel to make sure we have that balance throughout the rest of the season. I mean, you know, we've got some really tough months ahead with, you know, when we start playing twice a week, and it's one of those things where we can't drop points in some of these other games after midweek game as well.
Yeah, I think it was. I think we mentioned it last night, me and Sparks. Like, it's actually a blessing, isn't it, that there's a 9 to 10 day game gap. Sorry, 9 to 10 day game gap between the Coventry City game and the Aston Villa game, which actually gives Mikel a whole week on the training grounds to kind of continue to get these guys up to speed, but also to be able to do some work on the training ground as well ahead of the Aston Villa game. And if we're being honest, pretty much from, I'd say, December onwards last year, we were playing every 3 days, wasn't we? So it was pretty much play, recover, play, recover, play.
He said they were doing basically 20 minutes training a day, didn't he? That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where this now is a good period of time, isn't it? And it is a really good period of time to kind of get these players back to where they need to be, but kind of get them on the training field and playing with each other and doing some more stuff in terms of like, look, we know how good we were with set pieces last year, but it's looking promising this year already that actually our first 6 goals have all been open play goals, and it just shows that actually, like, I think with the pressure off, with that handbrake now, and I think the confidence as well that Arteta will have as a manager, being the manager of the champions, I just feel that actually he's now ready to take that handbrake off and potentially attempt to go back to back, but to do it in some kind of style. Because I feel very much last year was just getting over the line, wasn't it?
It was. Just to pick up on the set piece, because we talked about no set piece goals from either the City game or the Coventry game. Have you both noticed that we actually don't tend to actually be putting the corners into the box? We're doing short corner routine. I mean, we've had some good shots or good chances created from it, but do you think that's now evolving, or do you think we're going to use sort of that going back to what we were used to in other games where we can't unlock a team, say?
I felt at the back of the last season we was doing that, wasn't we? Like the Newcastle game was a kind of key game, weren't it? When obviously Eze scored, but the 2 corners before that, there was an anxiety in the stadium when they went short for the third one, wasn't there?
There was almost booing. It wasn't booing, but you could hear the audible gasp.
It was like a disgruntled thing, weren't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like actually now what they're saying is like we can put a corner in, but also we can play it short. And we're going to have players like your Ezes, your Odegaards, your Declan Rices, your Brunos. They're going to be sitting on the edge of the box now, all more capable of putting the ball in the top corner. So, yeah, I do believe that we will continue to play that. I think we'll just mix it up. I just think, we'll continue to mix it up.
Exactly what I was going to say. I almost sort of see it as a sort of like a cricket analogy here where, you have your bowler come in and it's 5 in-swingers and then suddenly an out-swinger and it's, 2 or 3 short corners and suddenly it goes in that box, sort of cause confusion and wonderment about what Arsenal are going to do just to confuse those defenders. And I think that's what you want, is that sort of mixed approach to how you're going to do things, because I think that really is key to sort of unlocking sides. It is a little bit of unpredictability. And I think you're saying there about the handbrake being off. I'm not sure it's just about the handbrake being off. I think I do wonder whether it's Arsenal have got all their attacking options on the pitch, and I think it's a mentality issue rather than a tactical issue. I think we sensibly made a tactical tweak this season where I don't think the fullbacks are coming into those central dangerous areas. We're getting our attacking players inside, whereas last season we had Urin Timber, almost where our number 8 should be, in attack. But also that we're not falling back and worrying about the mistake, and we're prepared to try things more. And I think it is because they're playing without that pressure rather than a tactical thing. I do really think it's that. But equally, we haven't played a real proper organised low block yet. Coventry were trying to do it, but they weren't quite used to the intensity. In City, City defended poorly, but they don't tend to play with a low block too often. So I think we'll see in a few weeks' time. I think we'll have a better idea on that situation rather than now. But so far it's been encouraging signs, and there's very little that people can complain about.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just going to go into something that you're kind of talking about in terms of having players back. Martin Odegaard, that come back and he had that moment, did he, for me, against West Ham, which pretty much was the moment to win a title in my eyes, when he stormed into that box and set up Trossard. But he's gone away to the World Cup. He's had an absolute fantastic World Cup. It's actually turned out to be a massive blessing in disguise for me, I think, the World Cup for Martin Odegaard. And he looks like that player again that we see a few years ago. Now, he had a frustrating year last year, didn't he? Like, it was stop, start, and then it was stop for a long time, and then he gradually come back in. Do you see us getting him back into that 2023 Martin Odegaard? Because what I've seen so far, very, very encouraging in terms of he looks like he's fit again. He looks like the pressure's off him as such, and he looks like a player that's come back from a World Cup basically with a swagger to him.
What I thought as well, based on the Coventry game, is I don't know if you noticed, he wasn't going in as deep to collect the ball as well. You saw Declan more playing that role, and especially in the first half, Odegaard, when we had the possession in our half, he didn't sort of come. He stayed in the opponent's half. He wasn't coming into our half as much. Where previously, he slowed the play down by coming into our half a lot more and wanting to get on the ball. But like I said last week, there was leaving gaps for us going forward because you would have him and Zubimendi do that. So I think when you've got Declan there and you've got Odegaard further up, I mean, I think you're going back to about 2-3 years ago when we used to have the Odegaard, Saka and Ben White, which we were seeing a lot against Coventry. We really flooded their right-hand sides on Coventry. And I think Odegaard looked like he was playing with a smile. There was a lot of rumours, obviously, about him falling out with Arteta towards the end of the season as well at some points. But he seems to be really happy to be there, Odegaard, at the moment. And I think he will have a really big season for us. There was obviously the thing with him last year when he just had a new child and stuff like that, the injury, and it's all a bit much. And when as soon as you're not playing for a few weeks and you've got an injury and you want to come back and you feel like you're going to lose your place, you're probably saying you're fit when you're not fully fit, because I think that's probably what happened with Saka as well.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry, Liam.
No, you go, Tom. You go, mate.
I was just going to say, I think Kieran's right. I felt that Odegaard obviously has had a difficult 18 months, right? And people were, understandably raising questions, but I always felt that there was still the player in there and it just needed that rhythm to come back and just needed that run. And that's what we've got. And there were signs of it at the end of last season, I think. I know he sounds daft, but he had a 15-minute spell against Brentford before he got yet another knock where you just looked at him and went, you can see the touches there. And last season, I think all of those things that Kieran's just mentioned there, quite rightly, were weighing on him. And I go back to that quote from Mikel Arteta. It must have been around December time last year where he said, I want Martin further forward. And I just wonder if he was trying to influence the game and being a little bit safe. Again, sort of that mentality thing I was talking about, by dropping deep into safer areas where he felt more comfortable, just to try and find some of that confidence. It's almost the opposite. It's trying not to look like he's hiding whilst hiding. And I think it impacted Zubimendi as well, because Kieran rightly at the top of the show said how well Zubimendi played for most of last season. Everyone only remembers the last couple of months when he was just knackered. And I think when he comes back in, and he will at some point, Martin not being in that area and being further forward will actually, I think we will see Zubimendi find that early season form that we all saw from him back as well, because he's got the space to operate in. So I think Odegaard is going to be really key this season, and it's really good to see him back in this form.
Well, it's interesting talking about Zubimendi, isn't it? Because he's one player that kind of goes under the radar a little bit at the moment, isn't it? And I think a lot of that is because of Lewis Skelly's form, Bruno being signed, that actually Zubimendi's going under the radar, which might actually suit him, to be honest, because actually the pressure might be off him a little bit coming back into the season. Like, I know he didn't play many minutes at the World Cup, but obviously he was still vitally part of that squad come on in extra time in the World Cup final. But like you said, if he can find that early season form that he had last year, then that's another bit of ammo to our ranks, isn't it, in that centre midfield department?
And goes to that rotation we were talking about earlier, which, as Kieran again rightly said, isn't just in midfield, it's all over the pitch. And being able to have those options is going to be crucial. And he is a big player. He's a World Cup winner, let's not forget,
Yeah.
One player I do want to kind of pick out on Friday, because I thought he had a really good game. Mascara. I thought he looked really solid, strong, physical. You could tell that he's had a really good pre-season behind him now. And it's going to be interesting, isn't it, on Monday night? Because obviously Cons is now fit. He comes in, Kieran. It's going to be interesting to see how Mikel manages that one.
I think he's going to bring Konza in. I think with Konza knowing their team quite well as well and what their weaknesses potentially are. I know they've got a lot of new players. I think maybe Villa might have Nicholas Jackson registered by then as well. I think Conser will play. I think Mosquera will play some of the smaller games, or maybe give Ben White a rest if he needs it at the moment whilst Timber's still recovering. But I think you brought Conser in because he's a Premier League proven player.
Yeah.
Even though they've got a bit of a depleted squad, they're still a strong side. I know they lost against Brighton quite convincingly, but again, they're embedding a lot of players in. And again, similar to us, they'll have had another 7-8 days rest, working on new stuff, bringing in the new players up to speed as well. I don't think it's going to be a massively easier game against Villa. I know we're going to talk about that a bit later, but I think Conser starts. I mean, again, what could throw it off completely is that he actually starts right back. Guerra plays centre back. Again, you've got that option as well, I guess. Yeah. But for me, if I was choosing it, I'd probably have Ben White play right back. Again, for what I said earlier about the connections with Saka and Odegaard, like we've seen from a few years ago, and you'd have Conser play. But for me, again, thinking about the Chelsea game, you would want Gabriel and Conser to have a game together as well, because I think as well, Conser is going to be our starting centre-back over Mosquera. As good as Mosquera looked, he will get games because we will have injuries. We will need to do rotations. But I think whilst Saliba's out injured, it is going to be Conser playing when he can there. Again, unless Ben White gets injured.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. I don't know. I'll go to you, Dom, on it as well. I do think that with Conser coming into the squad, I think like you said, he's been brought in to kind of obviously firstly cover William Saliba while he's out injured, but he's a £50 million player at the end of the day. So you'd expect him to play a lot of minutes this season. I don't think that he will be chosen on Monday. I think obviously it's quite important that he gets some minutes, because I think he needs to kind of, since he's come back from the World Cup, he probably hasn't had much game time at the moment whatsoever. So I do think it's quite important that we start playing him. And if you don't play him, you're probably not going to get him to pick up the minutes that he needs. So I do see him coming in Monday, and it will be interesting to see how he kind of settles in next to Gabriel. So I'll go over to you on that, Dom. Are you happy firstly with the Conser signing? And personally, from my own opinion, I don't think we could have got anyone stronger to obviously come in at right centre back under Saliba. Like when you're trying to get someone in who's going to basically be covering the best defender in the world, as such, as the way I look at it, I think it was a very solid signing.
I think solid is exactly the word I used, actually, funny enough, for Ezri Konsa. I mean, my preference, funny enough, was to go with a slightly different player because I felt that this was one where Christian Mosquera was coming through. Obviously, William Saliba is the starter, and we've got other players I felt could play there. So I was looking probably more at not necessarily this player, but more of John Stones in terms of that aging player for just get you through a season or two, or a younger player, someone like a Jean Martin out of Real Sociedad that could come in and be that player that can play your right back or your right centre back. But Ezri Konsa is a very good defender. He is a similar profile to Saliba. I don't think he quite progresses the ball to the same ability as Saliba. I know he has very good passing numbers, but they tend to be a little bit safer passers. But he is very much Premier League proven. And from that point of view, I think it's really, really good signing. I don't overly like the price, but welcome to the market. But I also think you have to factor in that right back situation there, where we know Kieran Timber's going to be coming off a very long layout. He's basically been out since March. Ben White, we know, can't play 2 games a week, and his ability to play both there makes this crucial. In terms of Monday, I think it's a really interesting one because you guys make some really good points there around he needs some minutes because he's not played a lot. I don't think he played pre-season at all for Villa. And he is in a situation here where he's might be needed against Chelsea, and you don't want to throw him in cold against Chelsea. However, I don't think I can drop White or Mosquera after the Coventry game. And I also think if you start Konsa, you rile up that crowd even more. And that crowd is going to be febrile on Monday. It's a Monday night game under the lights. They've just taken one hell of a battering on Sunday against Brighton. And funny enough, I think if Arsenal score early, it could really turn the other way for them. But I think they're going to really want to get behind that team and sort of put that behind them, and Conte whips them up a little bit more. And equally, well, Kieran's right. He knows Villa. Villa know him as well. So it can work both ways. So for me, I'd go unchanged. But if Arteta brings in Conte, I fully understand why, for exactly the reasons you guys articulated. But I would go the same back four against Villa, because I do think this is a tricky game and quite an important one that we win, partly so that we can prove Gabby Abraham or whatever his name is, wrong about Arsenal are going to pick up 6 points from the first 5 games. Let's get 6 points from 2, shall we?
Yeah, let's do that. Like, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's hard with a centre back, isn't it? Because you've got to manage the game how it's going, and you can leave him on the bench, but there can be that risk then, can't it? That you don't bring him on, but
maybe he comes on at right back though, as Kieran suggested.
Yeah,
Ben White does 60, 65.
Yeah, there's definitely that option, isn't there? Definitely, I guess, like, depending on how the game's going. I think if he's on the bench, he definitely comes on at some point of that game, whether it's at right back or centre back. But that right back shout is not a bad shout as it goes, because I think this is the other thing, isn't it, Kieran, with Ben? He's had his own injuries in the past, and obviously him and Timber have been them two kind of players where they've had injuries, probably vice versa most of the time. We've never really have we had a fit Ben White and a fit Timber at the same time for a substantial amount of time. So managing Ben's minutes is a major thing as well, isn't it?
Yeah, massively. And again, I was just looking at the fixtures on my phone. So obviously we've got Villa on Monday, then we've got Chelsea, and then we literally are going to 2 games a week as well. So for me, I think it's important to get Konza minutes either way, because I think he'll be utilised same as Mosquera. You might have it. We play Villa. We play Ipswich on the 8th of September. And again, for me, Mosquera will start that game probably. But I think it's just managing it. I think you've got to be careful with Ben White. I think Ben White offers such a great attacking threat for us. And again, if we're going to overload and continue overloading the right-hand side, I think he's going to be key to that, whilst Konza or whoever else is going to play right back is going to build up those relationships with the players, with Saka and stuff as well. But again, this is why we've got a squad now of 22 players, is to have these sort of situations, and nice to have situations where we actually are left guessing who's actually going to start. And if we're left guessing, obviously the opposition is also left guessing. Again, I know we're talking about defensive play here, but still, it depends on how people want to attack it. If it was Mosquera playing, maybe they feel, Mosquera is a weaker link. But when you've got Konza playing, do they still think that it's a weaker link on that side? It's a really nice problem to have.
It's really different from 3 years ago, isn't it? When it was literally, we all knew what the Arsenal side was.
Yeah,
literally, you didn't need the team sheet because you knew what it was going to be. Now we are, as you say, in that situation, and I'm assuming we're going to have, between the Sunderland and Brighton games, we're going to have the Champions League game. But I imagine that Ipswich game gets moved to Wednesday, given we're playing on the Sunday. Presumably, we're not playing 48 hours later. If I'm Arsenal, I'd kick up a right fuss if we are.
Well, the Chelsea game tonight was for 3 days after, wasn't it? The Monday night game, so.
Yeah, but at the moment it's 48 hours after, so I'm assuming it's going to move back 24 hours.
Yeah, I would have. You'd like to think it would do, because otherwise there would be a few complaints there, wouldn't there?
Well, rightly so, actually. If to be honest, I would say that about any side. You shouldn't be playing 48 hours later. There's no need.
Especially start of the season as well, when players are coming back from World Cups and all that as well. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's simple stuff, isn't it, really? But yeah. I do expect that
especially game. Especially if Ipswich are playing on the Friday, so they're going to have 48 hours rest before, more than us automatically. Not that should be an excuse for us, obviously.
I've just realised I've made a mistake. Sorry, just to correct myself. I realised we're not actually going to be playing Ipswich now on the 8th of September, because that's going to be Champions League week.
Is that actually going to be Champions League week, that first week, September?
Yeah, I just looked it up just to make sure. So match week 1 is going to be the 8th to the 10th of September.
That's very early, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why we put the 10th, because that's obviously.
Is that order that has come out? Is that right, or is that not right at the moment in terms of the pictures? Or is that, do they look to get the order that we see it tonight, straight after the game? Is that the order that the pictures will be in? Do we know?
I don't think it is, but someone in chat, if you know, please correct us. I don't think it is. But again, it seems a bit pointless to have Arsenal Madrid and Arsenal Munich as the first two, when it sort of gets easier as it goes on, sort of thing.
I think I'd rather play them earlier. Get them out of the way, mate. Get them out of the way. At least you got players fit at the time. We will go into the Champions League draw soon, but we'll just quickly go back to that game. Kai Havertz scored again, Dom. Second in 2 games. Gyökeres didn't come on the pitch. Not sure if that was a little bit with Arteta was looking at other players with getting minutes, etc., etc. Obviously, there's a lot of talk going on, which we'll talk about later as well in terms of transfers. But Havertz is very much got the shirt at the moment, hasn't he, up in that striker position? And he's very much that player that Arteta does trust in the big games.
Yeah, I mean, he has that experience and he has that movement and he has that ability to keep hold of the ball. And I think in the big games, sometimes that can be crucial. I do like the fact we got Victor Gyökeres and Kai Havertz, though, because I think they offer very different profiles of forwards, which allows you to change the game if it's not going well, or make a change based on the opposition. You know, I'm going to go back to Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham side just to make a point. If you're playing that high line, you want, you know, that kamikaze line, you 100% want Victor running in behind. If you've got those lower blocks or possession dominant sides, you probably want Kai Havertz just to keep the ball a little bit and take some of that sting out of them and get a little bit of a breather back in. And Kai's in good form at the moment. You know, I can't remember the exact numbers, but he's got really good goal and assist numbers in his last sort of, since he came back from injury. He scored big goals, including Burnley in the Champions League final. He obviously got one. And he's on good form. We all know the issue with Kai is obviously he's not consistent clinically in front of goal, but I thought his movement against Coventry was really, really good. Again, he looks really confident right now. But I expect to see rotation there as well, simply for that sort of tactical bits. But, you know, I think many people will be calling out a plumber to try and see that 60 million that we pulled down the drain back, you know?
Yeah, definitely. It's good to see him fit, isn't it? And he's another player, isn't he, Kieran? Just want to see him stay fit.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've probably not seen him fully fit since probably the year we signed him. That's the only thing I can think of. But I think he's a big player. Obviously, he seems to be a player that all of his teammates like as well. You can see he's a very likable member of the squad. I think he for me, if you compare him to Gyökeres, I think Havertz brings in other players a lot more as well. And a game of how we started this season, again, I only do compare it to Coventry game, where he sort of goes out to the right a lot more as well. And you've ended up getting Odegaard, him, Saka, Ben White, and Declan Rice all on that right-hand side. And it causes complete chaos, where I don't think you would get that sort of movement from Gyökeres. Gyökeres wants to be in the box or running past the last defender. I think it just offers us something different to what Gyökeres does. I think, you know, Gyökeres is a bully. He will, you know, fight for every ball he can. But I think if you're on top of a game, I think Havertz is probably the better player and actually suits our play a lot more.
Catherine
oh, go on. Yeah, you two do this.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, Catherine just answered. No, fixtures are yet to be determined. They'll be finalised no later than Friday.
Yeah, that makes sense because, as you said, playing them in the order they came out makes no sense because you've got all the difficult ones first up and being played on the same weekend, right?
Yeah,
weekday, sorry.
They probably want some big ones towards the end as well, don't they, for their match day 8?
Yeah.
Or 6.
For the money.
Exactly. They want to balance them out.
Yeah. But just really quickly for you both, though, just on that point you were making there about Kai obviously coming to the right-hand side, you obviously get that overload down that side there where you've got, you know, Saka, White, Odegaard, and then Kai, leaving a lot of space on the left. But one of the interesting things I think I've seen from these two games, and I should have had the stats in front of me, but the left-hand side has been used far more for Arsenal's attacking in both games than the right-hand side, and far more than usual. Do you think that's suddenly because all that space is suddenly becoming out there? And then what's happening is they're going across, they're attacking quite effectively down the left-hand side, because in the past, even when we have attacked around the left-hand side, it's not been anywhere near as effective as the right. Suddenly, they then have to go across and the balls are coming in because we've got a lot of goals from the right side, despite the fact that the plays come predominantly down the left. Do you think those overloads are deliberate I was talking earlier about tactical tweak from Mikel to get the balls coming in at that post, occupy defenders and create that space on the left and really focus the attack down the middle and the left, and then switch it late. Do you think that's deliberate, or is it just happenstance in these first couple of games?
I definitely think it's deliberate. I think they've obviously got a lot of faith in Zolas as well, because we're seeing the ball played to him a lot more. I don't think we would ever seen the ball played to Martinelli or Trossard as much. And Zolas is beating his man. He's doing some really great passing or beating his player to get the ball into the box. His decision making seems to be really good. But what I also think is not just the Zolas thing, because I think the last few games we've had Declan, Miles, Lewis Skelly and Odegaard, I think that's made a difference as well, where all of those players are probably want to tend to go to the right a lot more than they go to the left, which is why that's creating so much more space. And again, I don't think Coventry players are following the ball, but they're following their men a lot more, and they don't want to sort of leave any spaces open. You know, if you get people who are doubling up on Saka, like they normally would do as well, and then you've got other players, you've got 5 other players there, you're really leaving that space open. Again, I don't think we had, you know, for me, one of the most successful things we were previously was the Ben White, Odegaard and Saka combination. This is the first time we're really seeing it again properly in over a year. You know, we didn't really see it last season as much, but they all look fully fit at the moment. I think that makes a big difference, and it is creating that space. And you've got a player, and Zolas, that looks top notch at the moment. He looked really good.
Yeah, like I've got to say, like to Zolas, like over pre-season and like especially the games against Man City where I've seen him live and the game against Coventry, I said it the other night, like obviously Trossard had his clutch moments for me, but he was very in and out last season, especially as the season came on. Look, there was a lot of stuff going on in his family life as well, so you can't underestimate what was going on in the background. But it's that first time I've seen that directness in that left wing where a player looks confident in terms of running. Like, don't get me wrong, Martinelli was good when he got behind a player, but I was never confident really with that he was going to go and beat a player and then put a quality cross in. I see really good signs in Calavori and Zolas already, and it's no like surprise to me that actually when you start looking at the start of the season, Calavori started like a train, an absolute express train. Do you know what I mean? Scores within the first 30 seconds in Cardiff, and then comes up with that assist on Friday night. And I know
lovely turn, by the way.
Pardon?
Lovely turn from him, by the way.
Yeah, unbelievable turn. He's a maverick, isn't he? Like I've never seen a player at left back like this guy. Like it's just.
You've not seen me play, mate.
Well, no. I might get a 5-a-side game going or something like that. But
I don't cross the halfway line.
Yeah, you'll be dead by the time he gets the halfway line. But he's such a maverick, Calavori, and I see really good signs with them two already. And hopefully that kind of continues. But yeah, I do think we're deliberately doing what we're doing down the left, and actually it takes a lot of pressure off the likes of Saka. Do you know what I mean? Because actually we've been so dependent on Saka that he has their moments, he beats that player. And I just want to go on to him a little bit as it goes, because I thought he was sensational again on Friday night. Like, this is a guy, right, that's gone to the World Cup. Didn't go really right for him at the World Cup in my eyes, in terms of he didn't get selected for the games that he should have been selected in. He should have never not been selected in that World Cup semi-final for love or money, in my personal opinion. But he had that France game where he scored the hat-trick. Yeah. But he had that hat-trick, didn't he? And like I said at that moment, actually, it might be a blessing, because then Saka will come back now, chomping at the bit. But it's just his all-round game. He can beat a man on the outside. He can come inside. His shielding is absolute second to none. I don't think I've seen a winger like it. He never loses the ball. Whatsoever. And that might be where he started at left back for us and grew that way. But yeah, I just feel that with Saka at the moment, it's just another player, isn't it, in terms of can he stay fit? If he can stay fit, then I think we see our old Saka back. But it's a big if at the moment, isn't it? And yet again, Arteta is going to be key in that, in terms of that rotation. Obviously, he's got the players on the right-hand side to rotate it with. And the good thing now is, and we're seeing it game in out, and you made a really good point earlier on when you said 2023, we knew what the team was going to be. But we also knew Arteta weren't going to bring on substitutions either. He would only bring on substitutions if he was forced upon. But now, as you see, The likes of Odegaard are going off after 65, 70 minutes. Saka's going off after 65, 70 minutes. That's pretty much key for me to try and keep these guys fresh.
No, I agree. And again, we're just in such a great position with the squad depth we've got. And again, what will be interesting is how teams continue to play against us. Again, I talked about us getting doubled up with Saka. If they start seeing how dangerous we are on the left, what does that change stuff? And again, we know Saka can sometimes beat two men anyway. If they're going to put an extra man on the other side now to protect the left side, you're going to have maybe Saka have 3-1s of just 1-on-1, which, most of the time you would fancy Saka getting past his man and delivering something in the box, either a shot or a goal. That's like a shot or a cross. I think it's interesting. I think he's going to have a really big season. I think similar to Odegaard, he's obviously had a bad sort of 12 months of injuries and everything else as well. And again, he probably had such a negative press last season as well, because obviously his goals and assists contribution is probably one of the lowest he had for the last few years. But again, he's come back, and like most of the squad, he's come back looking fresh and ready to go. He's not looking like he's tired or anything like that yet. He looks fresh, which is what you want to have, is a fresh Saka. And if you've got him clicking and you've got our left-hand side sorted out, someone who's very similar to him as well, it looks like, I think we're going to cause teams a lot of problems when they're both on fire.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I think like it's key, isn't it, in terms of actually this rotation piece? Do you know what I mean? Like, I think especially when you get like, don't get me wrong, we've actually been. I know we got the Coventry game out of the way, but when you look at our next 3-4 games, they're not gimmies whatsoever, are they? Like, you're going away to Aston Villa, who finished in Champions League last year. Got Chelsea at home, which, in my opinion, if I'm sitting here right now, Gav would love to hear this. I actually look at Chelsea as probably the team that could get closest to us at right this moment in time, just because of the fact that actually they don't have to play in Europe this year. They've got that 7-day gap in between games for many weeks of the season, and obviously they've got a good manager who's gone and got over the line with a Leverkusen team that went invincible, didn't they, for the season?
And it looks like they're going to bring in a better keeper than Sanchez now with Martinez.
And it's quite funny. My mate just literally messaged me. He's a Chelsea fan, and the other day I said to him, "I actually think you're going to come close, but you need to sort that goalkeeper out." And 7.5 million for Martinez. Let's be honest. Look, we all have our feelings on Martinez, but 7.5 million for Emi Martinez is an absolute fantastic deal for Chelsea, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing as well with Chelsea, because I agree with you entirely, and I flipped, and it wasn't because of I had City. And then they kept selling more midfielders. And I just thought, suddenly that midfield needs a whole new rebuild. And I think it's going to be a good rebuild, because I wouldn't be shocked to see someone like Enzo Fernandez go in there, which weakens Chelsea, by the way, if that does happen. But an experienced midfielder come in. But suddenly you've got Bawadi, you've got Elliot Anderson, and you've got another, let's just call it Enzo Fernandez for a second. They are 3 good midfielders, but they've got to work out how to play and then play with, obviously, Ryan Shirky. And I think that's going to take time, because it's such a crucial area of the pitch, whereas our centre midfield is relatively settled. And you look at what Maresca's doing there tactically, and like, I don't quite understand it. Whereas you look at Chelsea and you go, look, the back line is still a little bit dodgy, but they, as you say, they improved the goalkeeper. They don't have that football, but also they've got a decent 11 with a couple of good squad players coming in. I think Henderson and Welbeck are being slightly slept on at Chelsea as experienced players behind the scenes that they don't have. And I think all of that puts together for them being Arsenal's closest challengers. And, obviously, we all know about Martinez, and this might not be a popular opinion from an Arsenal fan. I actually have a little bit of respect for him asking to go, because he wanted to play and he wasn't going to play ahead of Leno. Obviously, some of the antics as well surround that, sort of take some of that off. But I will always respect a player that wants to leave a club because they want to go and play. I will always sort of go, do you know what? Fair play to you, but that's why you want to go.
I was quite gutted when he went, if I'm being totally honest at the time.
I was too.
I thought he was a main reason why we won the FA Cup. And there's no disrespect to Leno, but I just felt that change at that time had a massive effect. And he won the FA Cup with us, didn't he? He's a good goalkeeper. Do you know what I mean? Yes, he's a bit of a shit house. Yeah, he doesn't do what he should do at times to make himself look better than what he could do. But that's a typical kind of Argentinian, really, isn't it?
But we also hate a shithouse when it's against us and love it when they're on our team, right?
Exactly. And I'm guessing if he was in our team and he was doing it, it's no different to when Ramsdale was doing it, wouldn't it? Really, was it? If we're being totally honest. No, exactly. But yeah, I do think it's a fantastic deal for Chelsea. I do think it's a deal that gets it. Actually, it will push them up league positions by the end of the season.
And I think it's really good, though. We're playing them sooner rather than after a Champions League week or midweek game. Because I think, last thing we would want is to play Chelsea after we've played Madrid or Bayern Munich in the Champions League. Really, we don't have to worry about playing them again, I don't think, till February or March time off the top of my head.
Yeah, I do. I think you're right. It reminds me of a little bit. It reminds me of when the season before that they become the team they were. And they brought Crespo and all that, didn't they? And we got them quite early in the season at Ivory, didn't we? And I think that was when the ball went through Cudicini's legs.
Yes.
Yeah. And we won it. But I was quite glad we had them early that season because actually at that time there was a lot of talk. Could Chelsea be in the mix for it that year as well? They brought quite a lot of players in and obviously they were going for it. So I think you're right. I think it's important that we have got them first thing because I think actually, if we can get a good win over them, then it puts that marker down straight away, doesn't it?
It does.
So
I think that's a game we really need to win as well. To any confidence either.
Big marker if you win that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so obviously let's go into the Champions League draw now because I know we've touched on it already, but I'm going to go to you first, Dom. Yeah, it's an interesting one to say at the very least, isn't it? It's I guess where last year, look, we got lucky last year, didn't we? In terms of I felt like within that draw, but also we earned our luck by finishing top, in my opinion. So when people moan about it, well, we finished top, so we deserved what we got in that run to the Champions League final. Where this one it's more like the glamorized now, isn't it? Like we've got the Real Madrid's at home, we've got the Bayern Munich's away, Dortmund even at home is not a gimme. Do you know what I mean? Napoli away, like absolute fantastic fixtures, isn't they? Like this is what we want to be part of, and this is what we want to see, and these are the kind of games that we are going to be seeing between now and January.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Look, we did earn that luck last year. I don't care what anyone says. Yes, it was a 50-50. Bayern could have got our side of the draw, but I do think that top spot and first and second is crucial because you've got all those knockout games second. This is a tough draw though in the league fixtures, but as you say, that's what you'd expect in the Champions League. And Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, tough games. You're going to get that in pot one anyway. And I think probably in pot 2 and 3 we got on the tougher side of that draw. But equally, then last year, we went to Inter Milan, we had Atletico Madrid, we had Bayern Munich. We had some tough games anyway. I think the one real saving grace from this obviously is, and I know this is going to sound daft, but we've got, I'm not pretty sure it's going to not be pronounced like this, but I'm just going to do it for the voice really. We got Shaba at home. That is a really long away trip that we have avoided to Azerbaijan. Yeah. I think I'm so glad that having got them, we've got them at home because I think that's crucial. And our away ties, the furthest distance we've got to go is probably Naples. But it could be Prague. I think that's probably touch and go between the two, which one's further. But they're not horrific distances, and I think that is quite crucial. But I think Arsenal really fancy themselves to get top 8 still. And that avoids 2 extra games, and I think that's got to be the minimum aim that we're aiming for here. And if that means we have to go strong in the last game, the group stage to secure that, then so be it. But, exciting ties to the fans, exciting ties to the players, but a tough draw. Liverpool, I think, have got the easiest of the Champions League ties.
I was just about to say Liverpool definitely the winners, isn't they, in terms of the Champions League draw. I had a quick browse for it earlier on, and actually most of the English teams have got some tricky teams. Like I see the Paris Saint-Germain and Barcelona's like quite a few of the clubs got. So it's gonna be a good. I think this is going to be good for us though, because I think it'll give us a good benchmark in terms of actually we're going to be testing ourselves against the Europe's best already. We know how good Bayern Munich are. They could have easily been in the Champions League final themselves. Real Madrid are Real Madrid. They've got Mourinho back. That's going to be an absolute incredible game at the Emirates, Kieran. It's just when you get excited, isn't it? This is when you look forward to the Champions League returning. And I think it's actually given me more of a buzz now, seeing that draw and seeing them teams that we are going to be playing.
Yeah, and I think it is. I mean, as a fan, which we all are, we want to see these big games. As much as maybe no one's a big fan of this format of the league thing, but like you're not playing nothing games. I mean, I know you've got the two smaller teams of Prague and the team from Azerbaijan and Shaba there, but to have a Champions League nights, I mean, I love going to Champions League night to see Arsenal Madrid again. Last time we saw Arsenal Madrid at the Emirates, it was a special night, wasn't it? For anyone that attended or anyone that watched it at home, it's a special night. And for me, it gives players, it makes Arteta have to think about your squad again. You're not resting, you're not putting you got to think about before and after that Champions League game as well. But Champions League nights are great. And I think it's to have, I mean, I'm really hoping to get to go to Naples. I'm going to try, as soon as the fixtures are released, I'm going to try looking at going over to Naples. Could be one place I'd really like to go to. But I think they're great nights out for fans. And I think that's what we've got to appreciate. Think where we were 5-6 years ago, with no European at all, or we're having to go to godforsaken countries in the Europa League. I think, we're all happy where we are. And I think we just embrace what we've got. And again, I don't think we're going to have maybe an easy route as we did last year. I think that was a bit lucky. But who knows where the Champions League takes you. There were so many games last year where no one would have thought Madrid and the Galatasaray thing happened when, was it Galatasaray or Fenerbahce, when it went to extra time, or they lost on the last day when they played each other in the knockouts. The Champions League, it can.
Benfica, wasn't it? Did they get Benfica in that one?
Benfica, sorry. Yeah, it was. Do you know what I'm thinking of? Mourinho, aren't I? And Galatasaray the other years. With Benfica, I think as well, some of the more competitive leagues, like say, for example, I think someone put in here, Man U and Villa seem screwed. I think they will struggle because I think both of them don't have the squads to play their starting 11 for both midweek and for the league. So something's going to dip, isn't it? So it'd be really interesting where, if the Dortmund aren't playing a Bayern Munich, do they need to then play their full team on the weekend before and after? That's what causes upsets, isn't it? Where, other teams can rest their starting 11 versus when they play when they play the league compared to Champions League. So again, I think it's going to be really key just to make sure we're not just saving players for Champions League nights. We've got to have minutes throughout, and you've got to keep the players fresh and have plenty of rotation.
Do you think that this Champions League draw, Kieran, has any effect on the remainder of the transfer league market over the next few days?
What, for us?
Yeah, for us. Do you think that they might look at it and think, oh, do you know what? We've got like these games now. They're looking at the size of these games and thinking,
I don't think one more. I think we need one more, but I don't think this was a deciding factor. I think it was the target would be to at least get through to at least probably quarterfinals, semi-finals of Champions League anyway, as a minimum sort of thing. Obviously, hopefully winning it. But I think with how Arsenal seem to do their strategy, I don't think that would have changed just based on who we play. If we were to get an injury, I think that would maybe change it. But I don't see it, like obviously last year when we lost Havertz, obviously Eze came in and pivoted, obviously moving away from what he agreed at Tottenham. But I don't think the games we had, again, some of the games would have been hard anyway. But it looked like a really tough Champions League selection. And, pot 2 looked quite hard as well this year. I think harder than last year. But I think Arsenal and, especially Arteta and Berta and whoever is involved in the transfer strategy, I think they've got targets anyway. And I think, for me, I know we're going to talk about transfers shortly, but I think we've got maybe one player in mind who it seems to be going public with. And we don't get him, I don't think we go for someone else. I don't think we go for a second or third choice in that.
Yeah, I was going to say I agree with you, Kieran. I don't think Champions League changes the dial on transfers.
I think if I'm being totally honest, I think it's pretty much Alvarez or nothing, isn't it? At this moment of time, I think let's go into it because actually we're hitting that conversation, so we might as well go into it. But like obviously with Alvarez, it's 5 days now, isn't it? Just under 5 days. Well, literally just over 5 days with an extra hour or so. But for me, and this is the way I'm looking at it this week. It's looking more and more likely if he is going to move to anywhere, it's going to be to Arsenal because that move to Barcelona is just non and void. It ain't going to happen. And after what happened in that stadium on Sunday, which I found very uncomfortable, like I don't think no one should have to go through that. To be honest, like whatsoever. Look, I know a lot of people got their opinions in terms of obviously how he's kind of managed it, probably with his agents, his family, and all that kind of stuff. But that was just very uncomfortable for his son on Sunday. And I think it's obvious Atletico were trying to make a point, but I think the point should have been that he should have been left at home, really. Do you know what I mean? And they pretty much just go through the process in terms of what happens this week happens. It's happened what's happened Sunday. I don't know personally, just thinking if I was in that situation, how a player goes back to that because, like, let's be honest, he had someone walk up to him on the centre circle and tell him to lead the pitch.
Presumably for his own safety.
But
presumably for his own safety at that point.
Was it? What, do you think that was for his own safety though?
That's what they were saying, but of course that could just be briefing rather than anything else. But
what they said again, I think they said they had plastic rats to throw at him or something like that. The fans. So again, from a player's welfare perspective, if you want to keep a player, the last thing you want him to do is to face something like that, which makes it really hard. I don't see how he actually plays for Atletico again, unless he comes out with a massive apology piece or something like that. You know, he's missed training the last 2 days as well. Obviously, he seems really keen on a Barcelona move. Let's be honest. I don't think. Again, we don't know this, but obviously, from everything you see in the all the reporters are saying that he wants to go there. What's very interesting, I just got a tweet from someone I know now who's reporting that Arsenal have said they're going to take care of residency or a UK.
I'm just seeing that. Miguel Delaney, I think, is reporting as well, isn't he?
Yeah. That they're going to sort out residency for his family because that's obviously important. I don't know much about his family. I'm assuming he probably has kids because most of the footballers these days do have kids quite young. They want players to be in relationships rather than being in the front of tabloids. But I think I don't see how he doesn't not move to somewhere. And I think we're the only place place that he could go to. I can't see him going to PSG. I don't think he would play there as much. They've obviously got their system there, and I think we're the only other team apart from Barcelona that could offer him that. It's just if he wants to come to London and come to England, if he, depending on where he's happiest. But for me, if what I would be worried about, again, talking about our strength in depth, I'd be worried if we send Gyökeres the other way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just because, again, you're bringing in a player that maybe hasn't had much preseason in Alvarez, who, again, it's probably a psychological thing, but he's probably gone through a lot to be maybe loved by your club 1 minute and then completely hated and booed off the pitch the next minute. It's going to take a bit of toll mentally. It's very interesting. My only worry with him as well, again, apart from maybe losing Gyökeres, which we'll probably talk about a bit more in a sec, my worry would be is all of the players we've signed recently have got something in common. They've all really wanted to come to Arsenal. Gyökeres made that sacrifice of salary and stuff. You've had other players want to come to Arsenal, like Zubamendi as well. It's like being, when you're choosing a girlfriend, you don't want to feel like your second choice sometimes, do you? You want to feel like you're the first choice.
Yeah.
And then we're always going to have a worry is in 2 years' time, does Barcelona then come and try disturbing him from us? If he got his mindset on now, again, I know you can't really think about it like that, but I think that's a concern as well. You don't want to have a future issue on a player like that.
I think there's obviously always going to be that concern because obviously he wanted Barcelona. Do you know what I mean? But what player outside England doesn't want to go to Barcelona or Real Madrid as their first choice?
Especially when they're from South America. Historic links there are quite big.
Like, I think, in no disrespect to the normal social media fan, but I think sometimes nowadays, I think people are out of reality that you've got to understand. And like you said, Dom, South American players, their first targets usually as aspirers players is Real Madrid or Barcelona. Do you know what I mean? Like, no disrespect to us, but if you'd said to him probably, I don't know, when he was like 16 or 17, where do you want to be when you're 28, 29? I'm sure, or 26, he's 26, isn't he? 26, 28. I'm sure his first answer would be Real Madrid or Barcelona. So I kind of do get that. And that's why I kind of got the Finney thing as well. Because look, at the end of the day, getting someone like Finney over the line and getting him from Real Madrid to Arsenal is something that doesn't happen ever. So if we'd got that over the line, that's why it had been such the biggest signing of all time. Because
I was going to say, I agree. It was such a big thing to get him out of there if we had managed it because of all those family connections. He settled in the city and what have you. And it's for him, it was a dream club and still is. And I think he just wanted a bit of respect. But I do actually think Arsenal were relatively close to getting that deal done. And I think the thing is, well, I get that Vinny's a bigger and better player than Julian Alvarez. It's not that Alvarez is a bad player. Ultimately, we'd have all taken Vinny and we weren't his first choice. And I think it's here with Alvarez. And I think the other thing you can do here is in 2 years' time, if you do sell him, you're probably getting most, if not all of your money back, which you're going to reinvest again. I think the risk of it is twofold, really. One, if he is unhappy here in England because his family can't come, and, you know, I don't think it's going to be as easy as it sounds to get that visa sorted, but you'd have thought there'll be a way through because they're not going to be dependent on anything. He can support them, and therefore they won't need the support from the state, which is one of the things that will be considered on the visa. So you'd have thought there'll be a way around, but maybe in those early weeks while it's sorted, he may be unhappy because he's missing them. And does that affect his game? We saw that with Lucas Torreira, for instance. We saw it with Di Maria when he went to Manchester United. So we've seen it happen before. And that affects his performance. The other thing would be if he kicks up a fuss, like we've seen in the past with players wanting to leave. Hello, Robin Van Persie. That is the issue. They're the issues, but I think Arsenal will feel confident they can manage both of those sorts of things. And with where we are at the moment, you could ease him in slowly if he is unhappy. But I think Julian Alvarez is the player here. I agree with Kieran though that we can't see another player going out. And to be honest with you, I'm a little bit nervous about Martinelli going out without a replacement coming in. But I think Julian Alvarez, I would actually play him off the left-hand side rather than as a centre forward as well. I genuinely think that is his best position. I think it's where he's most effective and most dangerous and can make the biggest impact on the side. And actually, I'd be very interested to see, particularly if it's paired with Gyökeres, would be that interchange because Gyökeres likes to drift onto that left-hand side. We're talking about Kai going to the right. He drifts to the left. And Alvarez comes through the middle. I think that could be really, really dangerous, interesting to see. So I'm more confident that Julian Alvarez comes to Arsenal now because I think the big news today actually wasn't he didn't turn up for training, wasn't even the reaction on Sunday, albeit I think that would have had a big impact on him, as you say, Liam, but is the Athletic board have come out today and unanimously said they are not selling him to Barcelona. I think that is quite big because suddenly to row back on that would be huge unless they get some silly 250, 300 million pound bid. So I think that is the big thing today. But here's the big risk, I think, from Arsenal about this not happening. Barcola has just gone to Liverpool for 120 million. I know it's not quite done yet, but that looks like it's going to be done. Do they now have the money to come in and buy a centre forward in Julian Alvarez? Do they re-enter the market for him? And could that be the scupper? I don't know.
Who? Liverpool?
PSG.
Oh, PSG.
Because they've just taken that money from Liverpool, and they, you could argue they need a centre forward. I don't know. I'm not saying it happened, but it is a consideration. But I think Arsenal are favourites now for Julian Alvarez, and I think he's got to go.
I think Arsenal are definitely favourites. I think if he comes into the club, I think once he comes into the club, I think he'll realise what a great club it's to be in at the moment. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's be honest, where we've come from and where we are now and the atmosphere and just absolutely everything. I think like a situation where he's in to where he could potentially be. And look, look, there's a load of people out there go, I don't want him, get him away from my club and all that. But let's be honest,
I just don't agree.
You haven't got a choice in the matter. You haven't got a choice in the matter. Well, if he signs on a dotted line for Arsenal, you've got to support that player through thick. Do you know what I mean? Through thick.
I don't want any petitions again.
No, it's a joke, mate. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, right, let the club do what the club thinks they need to do. Do you know what I mean? Like, up to this moment of time, they're not doing a bad job, to be fair. Do you know what I mean? We're at a level that everyone wanted us to be at. If you said at 2020, in 2026, you'll be like one of the best teams in Europe and you've just won the Premier League, we would have bitten hands off at that point, because we would have probably sat down and just laughed at it, because we knew how far away we was from Liverpool and Manchester City at that point, and we was far away. It's not beat around any bushes. We was that far away. It was ridiculous. But I think
the idea that Arsenal could have done that in a season or two is ridiculous. The whole club needed rebuilding.
Yeah. Well, you got to look at. I think you have to look at the manager in terms of the culture, and when you see like last night, Guendouzi, for example, and you think, but everyone forgets about that guy, don't they? Everyone goes on about Aubameyang and Ozil, but this Arteta had to manage him as well, didn't he? And when you see what happened last night, you're actually like, do you know what? Because let's be honest, right? Don't get me wrong, it's not right what people are chanting to him and all that, but. That was a full.
You can't lose your head like that.
That was a full scale riot, and he went totally out of control.
And again, there was so much potential there with him after the first few games he played for us. But again, Arteta's obviously got the right players in. Yeah. He's made sure that, from a personality point of view, they fit the club's culture, the club's morals, and everything else as well. We've had a fantastic. I'm touching wood here. A fantastic disciplinary record last season, which I hope continues this season as well. And I think, he's done the right thing there. But I think with I'm trying to think of how to put this, with Alvarez, I think the reason why I think we're going all in on him, or maybe relying on him, is I just don't think there's a market out there for too many wide/forward players that can do that. Because obviously Arteta likes to play players that can play multiple positions. Gyökeres is probably the only exception he's bought, but doesn't play in more than sort of one position. Yeah. But I don't know who else there is. I know we talked last week on the show about Osimhen sort of thing. I don't think any of us really thought Osimhen was the first choice in a way. He's more of a getting maybe another body in, and again, another bar that could also upset the apple cart with his personality. But I don't think a lot of people said as well, but Bacola is not really a massive step up to where we were. We were unsure, is he much better than Martinelli? I think there's a real lack of forward players on the market who would actually really make us significantly better for the value they bring to us.
And I think in the World Cup year, you don't see the big players go either. We saw it with a quieter window for the top clubs a couple of years ago, then a big one last year. I do think Barcola is better than Martinelli. I don't think he's 120 million. He's an 80 million pound player. It's why I actually think the club were right on Morgan Rogers. The issue I have when you look back on Morgan Rogers might be, and I think Villa and Chelsea did a deal with each other, if I'm honest, they did a bit of shady deal in there to make it work and made sure they overpaid each other for players. But I can't prove that, and that's by the by, it's happened. The only issue I would have with Morgan Rogers would be if we get to the end of this window and we haven't bought that left winger in, Barzolas, who I think has looked a real player in his early days. That would be my only issue there. But equally, do you want to go and spend 115, 120 million pound on a player that's not worth that, and you're lumbered with it, given you still have financial regulations to meet? And yes, Arsenal got a lot of revenue in, but you're lumbered with that player, and we've seen the impact it has on clubs across the league when they are lumbered with players they bought in for big money, but they don't hit what they need to do, and they can't move them on, and the impact it has is huge.
Yeah.
Do you think it goes to both of you? Obviously, say for example we don't bring any more players in. For me, I think we're going to end up seeing Eze on the left.
Yeah.
And maybe as a third choice / second choice, depending on the games, I think we might see Ethan on the left because he's right-footed, isn't he?
Maybe we might see more Saka go out to the left.
Don't forget Noni Madueke.
Noni Madueke.
I don't like him on the left.
I don't either, but
I think Eze would be the second choice at the moment.
Eze's second choice, yeah.
But then if you're keeping Ethan, he's not going right, is he?
I think you have to keep Ethan Wanyeri in a world where Martinelli goes and no one comes in. I really do. Yeah. I do wonder whether Arsenal might relook at Eli Kufri and go, look, Bournemouth, let's knock 5 million off the asking price because we're going to pay his wages for 6 months when he's out. Because I know he's back in November, but really it's the end of December, so it's not quite 6 months, but you know what I mean. Let's knock a few million off that. I do wonder if they do that and go, here's the second half of the season. But otherwise, I think if it's not Alvarez and they don't go, we're going to go Krupi early. And I think January still feels more likely to do that. We keep the powder dry till January. And I think you're right. It's Eza goes to the left and then we fill in with, whether it's Noni or Saka or Ethan, that goes out there as well as a sort of third choice. But Ethan, for me, has to stay. But I really like to see Ethan go out on loan and get, 30, 35 games this season and see, what we've got, because it's going to be tough for him with the likes of Max Dowman coming through and trying to get into his side. But secondly, get him that experience I think he needs. I think he does need to be playing that many games rather than 15, 20. I think he does need 30, 35 games. But I think he has to stay just for the numbers.
Yeah, he definitely has to stay. He 100% has to stay. I'm not sure I see him out on the left personally.
I don't either.
After, if needs must, we got two decent right wingers. Do you know what I mean? No, I don't want to be taking Saka out the right wing whatsoever, but I look at him as probably the most equipped to play there. If Eze or Tosselis couldn't play there, do you know what I mean?
I suppose it depends.
Madueke could play out there, but I watched him against Everton out there, mate, and his best moment in that game was when he moved back into the right hand side. So
he's definitely better on the right.
Yeah, he is, and I think as well that's what we bought him there for. I mean, the only reason I'm saying Ethan on the left is because, his fourth choice on the right. I would say, you'd say Max is ahead of him along with Saka and Madueke. I would say from a central midfield perspective or attacking midfield, if you've got Odegaard and Eze as first and second, for me, I don't think he's third or fourth there either, because I think you've got Zubimendi and Marino. Again, I know Zubimendi and Marino aren't more attacking players, but they're players more likely going to come on for Odegaard.
I fear that, but I don't want to see Moreno or Zubimendi in that 10 or, even Bruno. I don't. I'd rather see Ethan being given a chance there.
I think you have him for 20 minutes, though, to close up a game.
Exactly. You should go 3-8, don't you?
So I'm not saying to start, but to close up the game. Or you've got my worst nightmare, because I don't want to see him playing that game, is Havertz plays there.
I was going to say, if you play Havertz in the 10, I don't think you play him as a 10. I think you get him up almost as a 4-4-2. And you get him up sort of as a sort of second striker rather than as
I don't think that works. I think for me, he just looks lost out there. When we played in the Carabao Cup against City, when we had Gyökeres and Havertz playing, is that more like a 4-4-2? They don't seem to gel well together. That would be my only concern. But again, to Ethan is, I don't think Ethan comes on for Odegaard or Eze, depending on who started that game. You're more likely probably close the game off. You're having a Marino or Zubimendi come on if they're not on already, or even a Lewis Skelly. So he's not in your top three. In my opinion, he's not in the top three to come on there. The left side is the only place there's potential for him to go there. Because, again, apart from maybe Noni, we're saying, or Saka, to go out of their natural position, that's the only place he could potentially play. Again, not his natural position either, but because of his right-footed. And, again, someone correct me if I'm wrong if he's not right-footed, but he's the one that can sort of do that. He's got a bit of strength in him as well. That's the only place I can see him potentially playing some minutes this season, if he stays, and we don't have another left winger.
So are we saying then if the deal goes through, he goes out on loan?
He has to. If it's not now, it's January definitely, because he wants, similar to what we did last year. I think he played a handful of minutes between September and January, and again, probably if he waited a week extra, he probably would have actually got more game time, because with Marino being out, I think it's for his career, and if we are going to sell him next year or anything, we need to have him play games.
Do we look at a player like Morgan Rogers, right, and think actually Nwaneri, obviously a few years younger than him anyway, but do we look at him and think actually Nwaneri could be that kind of player in a couple of years' time?
it's so hard, isn't it, with young players? Because I think we've had so many promising ones, like with Smith Rowe, with Joe Willock, who's come through our academy. We looked really good in their first year or two, and then it sort of then struggled because of game time, because of injuries. I mean, look at Reece Nelson as well. I think at the time, Reece Nelson, before Saka broke in, he's probably one of our first youth players that broke in for a while, and everyone thought, oh, but, there's a high ceiling for him. Even when he signed that new long contract, they thought, oh, there's still a potential player in there. I think it's just consistency and not getting injured. I think Ethan seems to be a really good player. He's obviously, when he's come on and he's had consistent games, he's looked really strong. And that's why I think a loan deal is probably the best move for him if we don't sign a left winger. But I think obviously we've got to protect the club, haven't we? And making sure we do have that depth still.
Yeah, we definitely do, and we need to make sure that deal goes through, doesn't it? First and foremost, I think for me, I'd love to see one area go out now, because actually, I just want to see him go to a club and get his head down and play football. And after the Marseille situation, which, let's be honest, was totally out of his hands, because he signed for a man who went a week later. I think I just want to see him play football for someone and see how he plays, mate, because I really like him. I really, really do like him. I just think and I'll say it again, I think he's unfortunate that he's got Max Dowman behind him. And that's not saying that Max Dowman, that finishes his kind of career at Arsenal, because I felt a little bit of Reece Nelson, it did with Saka, because actually they were two naturally the right wing positions that will get going to be the future. But look, one area can play inside, Dowman can play inside, one can play right wing as well, the other one can play right wing. I'd say one area is a number 10 for me. He's come on and he's done a good job when he's come on. And the 3 games last year against Leeds, Forest and West Ham, he didn't put a foot wrong in them games. Do you know what I mean? So, and he was he played on the front foot, and he come on in against Dortmund, didn't he? Was it Dortmund in Champions League?
Yeah.
Sorry, not Champions League, in the friendlies. And
yeah, I was going to say Dortmund, I thought he was very good in pre-season, yeah.
Yeah. He played on the front foot again, mate. He come in and he looked really good. And for me, he just needs a really good loan move. And do you know what? I don't think it's 12 months. I think it's a 24-monther, if I'm being totally honest. I'd love to find a club that he could go and play for the next 2 years on loan. Get 2 years in him, and then let him come back and see what he brings to the table.
I think the thing for me on Ethan is, you're exactly right. He needs to play football. We need to see what we've got. And Max is going to be a big, tricky one here. And my fear with Ethan is that the club is going to move beyond him a little bit. And my fear for him is he becomes a little bit of an Emile Smith Rowe and doesn't quite hit those high notes we're thinking we've got. But to your point, we need to see what we've got, because he is an instinctive player. We see the player he is against Dortmund. We saw it in that sort of breakthrough season 2 years ago, where he had such big numbers on the right. But we're in this win now window where you need to be reliant on experienced players. Do I think, for instance, Ethan Nwaneri is going to be a better player than Madueke? Yeah, I think he is. But right now, Madueke is the more experienced player, is still a good player, despite him being incredibly frustrating. And we need those experienced players right now. If people saying Madueke go and you use Max and Ethan, well, imagine Saka gets 6-month injury and you're relying on an 18 and a 16-year-old for the whole season, or 19, however old Ethan is. That's a real big risk. That's why you want a Noni Madueke. But I want to see Ethan get those minutes and see what we've got. And I think it's going to be what he needs as well. So I do, I wouldn't go 2-year loan. I'd go a 1-year loan, and then maybe he goes back to the same club. But I don't think you do 2 years, because I think you want to be an option to bring him back. But he is a prospect, but I do worry that he might have just found a little bit of a lower ceiling than we thought he had. But maybe that's because we think Max is so good. I don't know.
I think that is part of the problem. I think where Max is so good, and look, let's be honest with you, he could be a generational talent. I don't want to say he should be. Yeah. Because actually I don't want to put that pressure on him, but he could be that generational talent. And I think, yeah, you're right. I think one area is just going to come a little bit of a cropper, because obviously he's ahead of him. But yeah, I definitely want to see him go out on loan. And I think us getting a player in will suit everyone all round. It will suit us because we get that world-class player in of it potentially Alvarez's ilk, but it will suit one area in terms of actually he'll be able to go somewhere and actually play football and enjoy himself. And look, he got selected, did he, to go up and play for England, like be part of the squad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Thomas Tuchel, Thomas Tuchel obviously thinks quite highly of him to kind of do that. He don't just do it, does he? To give out like free passes. He's done it because actually
he could have taken Jared Bowen.
Yeah, exactly. So he sees him as a talent.
Here's my question for you, because I think we all agreed that if we get someone in, Ethan goes out on loan. Where would you ideally want to see Ethan go out and play? Which club?
Probably
Premier League club.
Ideally,
Bournemouth, Palace, somewhere like that, potentially.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing him go to Newcastle.
That's on my list, but I've got a different one.
I'd like him to play with a team which is playing in Europe as well, because I'd like him to build up playing 2 games a week.
I've got you a team in Europe.
He's going to Sunderland, didn't he? Did he go to Sunderland?
No. Wrong end of the country.
Go on.
Brighton.
Yeah, Brighton's a good shout.
I think he'd really suit well. You know, Brighton play build-up football, playing a similar way to us. And with that, as you say, Kieran, on that European front, I think Brighton is where I'd be looking to send him. Yeah, Catherine and I, we're there, Catherine.
great minds think alike and all that, Catherine.
That can't be right, because one of them's mine.
I mean, the other place was I think could work as well. Again, because obviously he's a young boy still, is Palace, because he keeps him in London as well.
Yeah.
And then you've got a number of Arsenal boys at Palace still.
Yeah.
Again,
there's Eddie there, isn't there? Tommy Asu's there.
Eddie's there, Tommy Asu's there. Someone else, I can't think who it is now. But is there someone else? Am I thinking? No, I'm thinking of Fulham, aren't I?
Fulham's the Arsenal second 11.
Yeah, of course, with Leno and Smith Rowe and
Iwobi.
Yeah. But like for me, it depends. I think it's just working with a player. Obviously, there was a lot of contention about Nwaneri, potentially leaving, his brother leaving the under 18 squad as well. I think obviously they've come to an agreement what his future plan is. So hopefully it matches what the club has promised him as well. And again, if he signs someone, he deserves the minutes and to sort of build up his career and not have it stall.
Yeah.
I think that's a good shout, Sir. I do think that's a good shout, Sir. I'm not really sure about Newcastle, if I'm being totally on the show.
I just think
Brighton's a good shout. Brighton, Bournemouth, Palace would be my kind of 3, because actually it keeps him down south. And I don't think he gets taken out of that kind of, I don't want to say comfort zone, but he doesn't have to kind of go far for it as well. Do you know what I mean? As such, so he can easily get back into London and that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? When he needs to. I think them 3 clubs will be the 3 clubs.
Or even Brentford. Even Brentford, an interesting one.
Yeah, Brentford would Keith Andrews done an absolute great job there, isn't he? Keeps juicy.
Second favourite result of the weekend, that for me.
Yeah.
Nearly got kicked out of pub for that game.
A good mate of mine's a Spurs fan, and I messaged him, and he went, "Just please don't. I can't deal with it." I said, "Shall I send you sympathy?" He went, "Actually, do you know what? Can I have your first message? I'd rather have the abuse."
Brilliant. Good evening. No, that was a good evening. Definitely top Friday going into Saturday and seeing that. But in terms of the rest of the transfer market, are we pretty much saying, and that's it, Alvarez? I'm not saying bust, but it's either Alvarez or nothing. Or do we see anyone else potentially coming into the equation over the next 5 days?
No, I don't. But here's the caveat to that. We're obviously hearing a couple other names linked. There's always a lot of media talk around transfers, but Arsenal, we know, keep very, very quiet. And is there a world where there is something going on that we don't know about? That's the only thing. But my gut feeling says if it's not Alvarez, I think it's nothing happening, and we keep our powder dry and maybe go again in January.
The one who keeps getting mentioned and is the Everton winger, isn't it?
Yeah, for about 300 million pounds. 80 million in it. That's Ndiaye. That's just mental. I also think he's more likely to go to City because it looks like they're going to sell Everton Grealish.
So that's what they're saying at the moment. There's a transfer update about him potentially going to Man City. But to go back to the Arsenal question, if we were to sign someone, I don't think it's a starter. I think it's a squad player or maybe a youth player sort of thing, maybe to embed in. I don't think it's someone we sign for over 20 million or something like. Do you know what I mean? I say over 20 million, like, you know, you might end up buying a kid from Brazil for 15 million these days, and over makes it. For me, there's not many players who we think are available in the market who would potentially go so late in the window. And without hearing murmurs again, I think, you know, Don made a really good point. You don't often see massive players go in a World Cup window.
No.
Just because obviously preparations have come back late and they're settled. And again, it's probably what Alvarez is thinking as well. It's probably not the ideal situation for him to move so late as well as a big player.
It's the upheaval after an upheaval of being away for, you know, weeks on end, and then to upheaval your family again, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And again, you know, for me, you know, there isn't really, barring Haaland, which we wouldn't get, but I don't think there's any Premier League strikers which would make our squad significantly better than what we have. So we're having to look to go abroad. And even then, it's like, we're not going to get someone from Munich. We're not going to really get a striker from PSG. Again, we said even if we were to get from PSG, you're probably overpaying. There was that link with a left winger, the 18-year-old from PSG as well. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. But again, he's going to go for 80, 90 million for an 18-year-old you haven't actually seen consistently play for PSG. So in this crazy transfer window where we're talking about high fees and everything else as well, I don't see we do anything. I think Alvarez is maybe the exception because obviously maybe it's a target we've been chasing for a long time, but I don't think we panic and get someone that isn't in our top two or top three, because if you count Vinicius Junior as the first choice main striker we've got, maybe Alvarez is second. I don't see we start going down that list just to panic and get someone.
I agree with you. I mean, I think you do not want to bring someone in just to bring someone in. Look, I want to bring someone in, and I don't think we need to strike it necessarily. I think it's a left winger that we really need, but I don't want to see us just bring someone in for the sake of it, as you say. I think it's got to be the right player, and I'd rather go with no one and go with what we had than bring in the wrong player. I do wonder if Nusa might be someone they go with and go, look, it's not the starter, but there's good sell-on value there if it doesn't work, and we could maybe get that one over the line relatively quickly as a pivot option at this point. I don't know, but as I say, I think most likely is it's Alvarez or nothing.
Let's talk about Eze then, going out onto the left-hand side. Obviously, he's played out there, isn't he, for us? He had
only about 3 or 4 times though.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, the games that he played, pretty much Nottingham Forest, we had a major impact at the start of the season when he first came in, didn't he? Set out that goal for Gyökeres. But then he had that nightmare game, didn't he? Got Aston Villa, which kind of pretty much was a massive scar on his first season at Arsenal, wasn't it? Because we didn't see him for about 6-7 games after that. Are we confident that he can be the player out there if needed?
I don't think it's ideal, but yes, because I think predominantly that's where he played for Palace. And I think in that world, you'll see him come into probably how Mikel Arteta envisaged Morgan Rogers playing, just drifting in off that left, inside with Calafiori going outside. My concern would be if he plays out there, if Nketiah is the left back behind him, I think he's slightly less able to go past. But Nketiah can get forward and he can cross the ball. But as he's drifting in, I think kind of feels more likely. I think it probably needs Gyökeres up front in that situation though to go drift wide as well to create some space for him. But he can, but it's not. I'm not uncomfortable with it. I'm not crying about it. But ideally, I would like to see someone else come in.
I think predominantly though he will probably come on that position as a sub rather than starting a big game. At least I don't see
like he did on Friday.
Yeah. Again, I know that's not a big game on Friday. It's the first game of the season. But like, say for example, if you were choosing, I don't know, let's say you're playing Chelsea. I'm not to discourage the Villa game as not big, but I think Chelsea is the bigger game. I see Salah starting and Eze probably coming on the left wing because he's not going to start over Odegaard if Odegaard continues the form he's in. I think Eze will sort of play there on a smaller game and come on as a sub to rest on us at the moment. Again, assuming that we're not signing another left winger. I still think Ethan might have that thing if we haven't signed anyone, but Eze is probably a player in my mind. I actually think we sell next season.
Do you?
I could see that. I could see that.
Again, it's gonna. If you'd have said maybe end of last season, you said, "Oh, maybe it's Odegaard's time's up."
Mm.
But for me, Eze's as good as he has been, and he's given us some really memorable moments, especially against Tottenham, which is going to be funny forever. I actually don't think he suits our system. I don't think he's the playmaker we thought he would have been. And maybe I'll be proved wrong, and he's going to have a good form on, good sort of run on the left like he did at Palace and stuff. But I don't think he actually fits our system. He's a fabulous player.
I'm not sure he was bought to fit our system, though. I think he was bought to be that sort of game-changer maverick off the bench, and that's why I was quite excited by Eze's arrival. But I think he did struggle a little bit for large parts of last season, to be honest with you.
Oh, he's gone. But I get where Dom's going. I think he did. I think as well. I think that what Arteta asks for players isn't there isn't a free role like we had years ago when we had with Ozil, didn't we, Liam? Ozil could do what he wants. He wasn't going to be running around tracking back and all of that. And I think obviously Arteta is really demanding of what he wants out of his forward players as well.
I think it's a massive season for Eze. I think he had clutch moments last year. That's what I'll call his career at Arsenal at the moment, clutch moments. Because when you look at the moments, the 2 North London derby games, a proper clutch, obviously, 5 goals, he goes into folklore anyway. But when you look at the other goals, look, he scores that winner against his former club, Crystal Palace. That's a bit of a clutch moment, isn't it, for him? You look at the goal against Newcastle. It's another clutch moment, great goal. Yeah. It was a big goal at the end of the day. And then you look at the Leverkusen goal, was probably, for me, the goal of the Champions League. But it's incredible that he's had all them kind of clutch moments, but actually the consistency needs to come into his game. And I felt that it was coming into it up to that Leverkusen game. And then, bang, he got injured. And I think he was a big loss for us in that he's come back, Dom. I thought he was a big loss for us in that League Cup final, if I'm being totally honest.
Yeah,
but he needs to gain consistency, and maybe he does need to go out on that left-hand side, and maybe he needs to try and make that position his own, because actually he's fighting up against it when he's fighting up against the captain of the Arsenal Football Club, in Martin Odegaard, who's come back into obviously really good form. Oh, we lost. He's still in with audio. We've still lost him in terms of like over the course of last season, Odegaard, and Eze hasn't really made that position his own, has he? So Eze, you're right. Eze has a massive season ahead, and for me, if we don't bring that left winger in, he really needs to go for that position. He really needs to, when he gets his opportunity out there, to take it, but consistently take it. Do you know what I mean? Don't just turn up and bang the winner in against Palace and don't turn up for the next 3 games. It's about like you getting into that team and growing. And I did see it going into March last year. I did see him growing, and he's very well known, isn't he, as a seasoned player? But he needs to come out of that if he wants to have a long career at Arsenal. And this is a big year for him. It's a massive year for Eze, in my opinion.
I agree. I think it's make or break. I don't know. Sorry, he had a power blip, so I don't know if I got to the sentence I was about to finish, which was it's a big season for him to show he can do it consistently, because that's what you need to do at a club like this. And that's why I agree with Kieran. I think if he has a similar season to last season, which was okay, but no more, I think it puts him on the chopping block.
And the thing is, as well, when you look at him, 29 next year, you'll still get an incredible fee for him.
Yeah.
So actually, it could be the best time. That's like Martinelli for me this year. If you don't sell Martinelli this year, do you know what I mean? I know there was contract issues. Was he down to 1 year? Was he down to
1 year, but he had an option left. So it was 2 years. It was a club option.
But do you know what I mean? That drop, that Martinelli could have ended up in a Theo Walcott situation where actually we don't sell him at the right time, and then we end up taking the best we can out of him. Where actually, I think we've done quite well with Martinelli, considering he only scored one Premier League goal last year. I know he scored quite a lot of goals in Champions League, but he was never really getting into that team consistently, was he? I thought we've done quite well to get the money that we're getting.
It looks bad because of how much the other players have gone for, right? But Savio's not really 85 million because
they're corrupting the market, isn't they?
You know, but so it does feel bad. But equally, if you've not got that interest from a top 5 league, even then Serie A isn't exactly cash rich. It does distort it. The big fees are going in the Premier League, and if you haven't got a buyer in the Premier League, the money goes down a little bit. So I think Arsenal got above market value for Martinelli. I had him at a £45 million player. We got above market value for him, and it probably that increase at 56 million with a reported sell on. If that's a fee, is probably reflective of the market when you're not selling to a Premier League side. But I don't know, Kieran, if you have a different view on that.
No, I agree. And I think I was going to go through sort of a math as well around sort of how the transfer potentially is going to work and how it might work in Arsenal's transfer funds for now and for future. So the value of Martinelli's fee is between 51 and 54 million, roughly, they're saying, it translates. Yeah. So how it works is Gabby was bought by initial fee of 6 million. In 2019, all that fee should now be fully amortized because he had it in
100%
contracts. So that's 51 million, roughly 54 million, which is now pure profit and amortized in our profit sheet as well. Under how the 5-year amortization math works, that's a single profit of whatever the fee is going to be. So for our year 1 accounting for transfers brought in, which is Bruno, Konza, Hincapié, and Zolas, those 4 ends up being about 38 million, maybe slightly more, maybe closer to 39. So we've actually balanced out all of our transfers we've bought and actually have some extra money to actually spend to buy someone in just by balancing with Martinelli's transfer. And that's without additional revenue we would have got from Champions League last year, winning the league and everything else as well. So I know we've been really poor at selling. It's a shame we've let Nelson go on a free. We really should have got him to go permanently 2-3 years ago. But we're doing well from a PSR / where we are from a balance sheet perspective. We should be doing better, but I think to release Nelson, it's probably saving 5 million at least in
5.2 million saved in wages.
Yeah. At least, because there's probably other bonuses on top of that as well if he featured in the match day squad or got minutes.
Yeah, although I think that unlikely, but yes.
Unlikely, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. And I think, if we can free up some more funds with Vieira and Jesus going as well, for me, we've got money there. And if we haven't got the play we want to get now, hopefully there's still that money there in January. And we're doing strong. We can attract that player. So I think, even though it doesn't seem like we've done very well at selling, we've actually got this Martinelli deal really actually helps us. And, that's probably why, unfortunately for Martinelli, they've taken that really strong view on trying to get him out of the team because of it really helps the actual squad balance and the money and the balance sheet.
Yeah, I mean, Arsenal have obviously made record revenues, which helps, but actually, as you say, because of the way your more monetization rules work, is you get the instant sugar rush from that sale, and anyone you're coming in, you're putting over 3, 4, 5 years, depending on how long the contract is. So it makes a huge difference. And I don't think Arsenal necessarily need to sell next summer if they have a good season this season in terms of going far in terms of revenue from competitions. I think the reason you'd sell next summer would be to create space in the squad, but that is partly as a result of bringing Martinelli in at this pure profit level. And obviously, if you make sales next summer for squad purposes, that obviously then helps again. And by the way, I don't think I've ever found seen someone online as fascinated by the numbers as I am. I thought it was just me that was a geek.
You got a friend now, mate. You got a friend.
yeah, friend. It's me and Kieran in a pub talking math.
Arsenal friend.
I'm sorry, George. Good evening. George is in the show. I was supposed to say good evening earlier on, mate. I hope you're doing well, mate. I was going to say quickly on that though, because I know we spoke behind the scenes about this, and we spoke a lot about Waneri. Could he be a bit like if he has a really good year as well? But we sit there and think, do you know what? He's not going to make it within this squad. Could he be someone next season that we sell? Because yet again, pure profit, isn't it?
It's pure profit, and as you say, I think the decisions next year are going to be on squad fit. Are they squad fit? I don't necessarily think you need to make the financial sales, albeit Kieran makes a good point on why you might need to. But Ethan's that, but I think Ethan for me is the decision should be a pure footballing one. Is he going to make it? Is he the right player for Arsenal's future? And you know, I think he can make that. But let's not forget also that the level has gone up at Arsenal as well.
And then you think though, Dom, just to sort of point on what we've said about Walcott and Martinelli, is it going to be the right time to sell him? I think that we don't know. We're going to have to see how the next 12 months goes, but you don't want to end up in a Reece Nelson situation again.
God, yeah.
Where I think Waneri is actually on quite a big contract for a player of his age. I think he's on about 80k, 85k. You don't want to end up with a player that no one wants to buy, and you end up having to terminate his contract. I think that's the worst case scenario if
he has a poor loan spell, that is where you could end up in a situation. The ideal situation for Arsenal is he goes out, in my view, is we get a left winger and he goes out on loan, as we discussed. He has a really good loan spell. And then the worst case scenario for Arsenal is they sell because they'll be able to sell well. Alternatively, they find him a role in the squad. And it could be that he comes in and takes Ezra's space in that squad.
I think potentially if next season, if he has a strong loan spell, I think Eze goes potentially.
And Ethan comes in.
Yeah, it depends. It's because again, we said offline, I think as well that for me, Zubamendi and Marino have also got big seasons because Marino's getting a bit older. I think Marino's fantastic, but do you keep all three of them, Eze, Marino, and Zubamendi? Because they're all. I don't see them as starters in the big games. I think they come on, they play their role throughout the season. Fantastic squad plays, but are they going to be happy doing that as well?
I mean, I think for me, it's Moreno that goes. Sorry, Leon, I'll be very quick. He's the oldest of them, and probably the as you say, I think I've always liked him as a signing. I felt it was a squad signing, should be judged as that, and I think the criticism of Moreno signing when he was brought in was way over the top from some of the fan base, and they haven't moved on from that despite what he's done. But you're right, one of those two probably does go because the only issue with the Bruno Guimaraes signing was he's 28, 29. That's not my problem with that. It is the age profile of that midfield, bar Lewis Kelly. They're all in that same age bracket. And one of my big concerns from a City perspective this season, from an Arsenal perspective, great, but is they've had to rebuild that whole midfield very, very quickly, and it might take some time to gel. I don't want that at Arsenal. And that's where next summer, I think one of the midfielders has to move on so that you can lower that age profile. And it probably is Zubamendi or Moreno.
I think with Moreno, I think I was going to mention him earlier on to you guys about his role within the team because look, it's not that we take it for granted, but like he's such a good first time player, isn't he? In terms of he can play defensive midfield, he can play in the attacking midfield. He's played that number 9 like incredibly well at times. Do you know what I mean? It's become a point with him, isn't there, where he's going around. Actually, I need to play first team football and. I guess, look, he don't mind doing it for Spain because, like, the talent of Spain, he probably doesn't mind doing it here. But at his age, what's he, 30 now?
30, 31, I'd have thought.
Yeah, he's going to want to move on. Probably maybe more likely move back to Spain to finish off his career. So I think that's one that could definitely happen at the end of this season.
The alternative with him is he's quite happy he becomes the new Jorginho or Norgard, and he's happy with that. He may well go, do you know what? I'm winning trophies at Arsenal. I'm 31. I've won the World Cup. What more have I got to achieve? That could be alternative to that. But I think your version feels more right. And probably from an Arsenal perspective, feels probably what they would look to do just because of that age profile in the midfield. And they will be very aware of that.
Yeah. So he's just turned 30 in June. But the interesting thing is, let's assume he's on a 5-year contract. He would have 2 years left next summer. So it'll be interesting. It's either you give him a new contract or he goes.
I think at that point, I don't think you're giving him a new contract, if I'm being totally honest. Don't get me wrong. He's an incredible player for us in terms of what he offers us. But I think to give him another contract.
I made a mistake. He signed a 4-year contract. I've just looked it up.
So what's that? 1 year left.
So he'll have 1 year left at the end of the season.
Yeah.
I see him going at the end of the season. I really, really do. I just think that actually, like you said, he'll be 31. I think he'll want to play. He'll see that he's got a lot more football in him. And I think it's going to be a little bit different to the obviously it's different positions as well, Jorginho, isn't it? Yeah, I do see him going. I think it'll be right for his career at that point.
I agree. I think so.
Yeah, but let's be honest, he's an incredible squad player to have, isn't he? Like, in terms of just having him around, in terms of the positions that he can play. Like, I thought he done really well when he come on the other night. I thought he looked really sharp. He looked like he was right amongst it. You could tell that he's come back really confident from the World Cup. So,
well, I would be too, having won it. I would too, having won it.
I think he's been really unlucky, mate, because I honestly think when he's played that number 9 role for us, I think he's played it as good as anyone.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, he's grown a little bit more into that number 6 role. He is a bit slow and he is a bit clunky sometimes, but, if he's got the legs next to him, then you can kind of overcome that a little bit. And we do tend to play that double pivot and we have got legs around him now, but, obviously I think, it's not his ideal situation that in that position. I think he's definitely better in that slightly more advanced role. But I make the Norgard Jorginho comparisons not necessarily just in terms of position, but in terms of the sort of role within the team, which is you might not play a lot, but you've got a crucial role in the team to sort of play behind the scenes and support from that perspective, which is kind of where I make the comparison.
Yeah, we're going to look to wrap up in a minute. Just going to quickly go into the last game. To be honest with you, we've done quite a bit in terms of obviously discuss about Aston Villa. Just more around your confidence and all that. So I'll go to you first, Kieran. How are you feeling going into that game on Monday? Are you confident that we can come back with 3 points?
I think we should. I think it's going to be a lot tougher on what people expect. I think, I don't think anyone would have really had on their bingo card Villa losing 4-0 to Brighton. Maybe losing to Brighton, but not.
I had them losing, but not 4-0. Yeah,
4-0. I think it'll be a tough game. But at the same time, I actually think we win 3 or 4-0. I think we'll be very clinical in front. I think for me with Coventry, I don't think we got out of second gear. And I said in sort of my predictions last week that I think we'll sort of dominate it early on and then sort of in the second half sort of take our foot off the gas, which is essentially what we did with the substitutions as well. It sort of killed the game off. I think they only had really one clear-cut chance at the end, Coventry header. I think with Villa, I think we'll see a more intense game throughout, but I think if we get the early goal, Villa are going to have to start chasing the game, and I think that's going to really open them up for space. And because they're quite, there's so many players that have left, I think they're not going to be used to sort of covering the ground they're used to. Because again, to play against us at the moment, you're going to have to show such discipline against us to not give us that space. Because I think that's what we'll end up doing is picking space where they're not used to sort of marking us or marking him because they've not played together enough. So I think it's going to be a hard game, and I think we'll win convincingly because I think we'll get a few chances, and I think we will sort of bury them. And I think we're, doing really well at the moment with our scoring and taking those chances.
Yeah. I'm going to go to you, Dom. Obviously, first game on the road as champions. As Kieran said, obviously, he feels confident that we can go and get a good result. And it is quite important, isn't it, as champions to turn up and go into there with that bit of swagger, isn't it? Like, let them feel us being champions in that tunnel before the game. Do you know what I mean? Look, they've just come off a heavy defeat, and let's be honest, it could have been a lot more if Brighton probably didn't just shut it down in the second half and just thought we've got what we need. This could go either way, couldn't it? This could be like a wounded animal, or it could be that actually, if we do score in that first 10 minutes, we might see a very fragile side. Because look, they've lost a lot of key players this summer, Aston Villa. Martinez has gone, Cons has gone, Rodgers has gone, Watkins has gone. This is going to be a different Aston Villa team to what we're used to.
Very, very different, and I think it will take them some time to sort of settle. But I think you've made the big point that I was going to make is it's difficult to say because are they that wounded animal? They're playing under the lights. and coming back. And I think in a world where Arsenal don't score early, I think this is a much tighter game and Arsenal probably win it 2-1. But Arsenal score early, I can see Kieran's prediction coming in there at 3 or 4-0 because I think that crowd turns really radically. And they have lost so many players. You know, they've lost their goalkeeper. Yes, they brought a new one in, but he's not Premier League experience. I don't know a lot about him. They've lost Lucas Digne. They've lost Konza. They've lost Morgan Rogers. They've lost Tillemans. They've lost Ollie Watkins. Yes, they brought in, there's talks that Leao might be in time for Arsenal going to Villa. And there is, talks of Nicholas Jackson. But of those players I've talked about coming in, a lot of them are not Premier League experience. Only Nicholas Jackson, I think, out of that list is Premier League experience.
Do we think they will start, though, against us? Because we're talking Thursday night now. This is...
Well, even if they do, how many sessions have they had? It could look really disjointed. Okay, it's a really different level. But Monday night, we had to have four players that never played for us before. And we looked a very different side because they'd never played before. And I know it's amateur football. It's very different. But the principle is still the same. It's why I talk about that City midfield rebuild. When you haven't had that time together, it is really difficult. And I think we were talking Konsa earlier. He's had 8 or 9 days to train with Arsenal, and that's why you could see him come in because he's had that time. Whereas if he signed tomorrow, there's no way he should be starting at Villa because he won't have had that time. So this is a good time to play Villa in terms of their squad, in terms of where they're at, and it's going to take them some time. My only fear is that they are so wounded from that big defeat that they turn up and either shut up shop or put in a big performance because they're playing for their lives in many ways. But I do think it's a good time to play, and I think Arsenal will win it.
What are you going for?
I'm going to go with 2-1 because I'd rather be wrong on 2-1 and it be 4-0 than be wrong on 4-0 and it be 2-1. So I'm going to go 2-1.
I'm going to go 2-0. I just don't think they're going to have enough for us, to be honest. I think it's expecting a lot of them to be performing to a level when they've lost that volume of players, and when we just ground it down, how many players they've lost. It's
quite key players as well.
Tammy Abraham's another one that's going, isn't he? I know he weren't there that long. There's another one. So I don't think all's right at Villa at the moment, if I'm being totally honest. And I think that was seen on that first game. Look, they played all right against Paris Saint-Germain, but I think it's totally
so did Spurs last year, don't forget.
Yeah. But I do think that's a different environment. Do you know what I mean? I don't think Paris Saint-Germain are taking it for what it really is. If they're playing Champions League semi-final or final. But I just think that we're going to have too much from them, mate. I just think what we're bringing on off the bench as well will be ridiculous, like it was last Friday. And I just look at this team and I just think actually they know they're champions now. They feel like they're the kings of the league. And I think that they've got to make a statement. I think they've got to go to Aston Villa. They've got to go in that tunnel and make them feel like, shit, we're playing the champions tonight. And I think they will. And I think we'll get a 2-0 win.
It's important for us as well because everyone's going, well, you only beat Coventry. Well, it's a bit different if you're going to beat Villa. I mean, obviously everyone will say, yeah, but Villa are bad at the moment. But at what point do you go, well, who do you want us to beat? But I think from that point of view, it is really important that we lay down that marker. I think it's a really good point you're making there.
It's an important game because what you don't want to do is go into that Chelsea game on a draw or a defeat. Do you know what I mean? Whatsoever, because then actually that turns the pressure right round on you. I'm sorry, I just don't see Aston Villa are in that moment at the moment, and I just look at the moment that we're in at the moment, and the moment they're in. And the momentum at the moment are coming out these 2 games that we've come out of. And I just think we should be more than strong enough to come back with the 3 points. So I'm going to go 2-0.
Just to add about when new players can be registered with like Nicholas Jackson and stuff, I think they have to be registered by 12 o'clock tomorrow.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
Because I think, again, because it's even though it's a Monday game, they don't accept registrations on the weekend. So, again,
has to be before the start of the game week, doesn't it? 12 o'clock on. Yeah,
so if I think I think there's a Premier League game tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. They have been 12 o'clock today. But I think it's a good time to play Villa. Either this or after Champions League week was probably the best times to play Villa. And I think, Emery's a very good manager. He's done very well against us in previous years. I think this is probably a really good time. But he's missing not just all those players who have gone, they're not just your bench or your squad players. They are probably a lot of key players, leaders, and stuff like that as well.
Do we reckon he's going to shake Mikel's hand, or is he going to go down the tunnel again like he did on Brighton and against us last year?
Depends what the result is.
Yeah, I was only messing. By the way, I genuinely, in all seriousness, I think that's really poor. Really poor.
I've grown to really dislike Emery. I weren't the greatest fan of him at Arsenal, if I'm being totally honest. I think I'll stick by my guns. He deserved to go. We was in Freeborn at the time.
Yeah.
But
it was a difficult job he came into, right? I mean, from that point of view, I'm not going to hold against him, but his behaviour is just awful.
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong. He's done an unbelievable job at Aston Villa. He is one of the top managers in the league, but I think there's a reason why he doesn't get them top jobs. Do you know what I mean? And I think
his levels in that sort of
the mentality piece.
Yeah.
And you see that in his interviews at times, like the silence last week when he's asked a question, because I just don't think he's quick enough to be clever enough to be able to answer that. Where Arteta's very clever, do you know what I mean? He'll come out with something and just you don't expect it, do you know what I mean? But I just feel with him, you know what's coming. I knew straight away he weren't going to say nothing. And yeah, I just feel that he's not got that little extra to get him up to that level where actually a club like Man City would go, do you know what? Well, let's get Unai Emery in. He's done a good job at Aston Villa. Because let's be totally honest here. Like, if you was looking at him and Mascara, if you're Emery, you're thinking, do you know, I'm good enough to take that job in this league. That's what he should be thinking to himself, that he's good enough to take that job. Because actually, he's done a much better job in the Premier League than what Mascara's done.
But that's interesting, though. He's not. This has probably been his longest job.
Yeah, he's done a good job. He's done an unbelievable job for Aston Villa.
I think he's done a really great job. If you look at where he's done really well at Sevilla and
Villarreal,
he's got them to be good cup teams.
Yeah.
But after he's left them, they've not done as well. I think he's burnt the players out and stuff. And I wonder if you see that now, maybe with a Villa team, that they've done his methods for 3 years. And again, when he was our manager, I remember at times thinking, fuck, none of the players look fit. At times, they were saying it was the hard running style of him, and I suppose when you play a certain way, you sort of get tired from it after a while. And I think it'd be interesting how he copes this season because Villa, similar to Newcastle, they've lost half their squad. They could end up at the bottom end, and if results, start going badly quickly, no one's scared to sack a manager these days, are they?
They did.
Last year, he was at the start of the season. It weren't great for him. Like he was in a bit of a pickle last year. I think he's in more of a pickle this year, though. But I don't think that's all down to him now. I just look at club share, right, and I was quite surprised that we got Konza in some ways because when I've looked at clubs in the past, once they've sold 1-2 players, you're not getting that player out of them. Do you know what I mean? You're not getting that player out of them for love or money. Like. If we went to clubs in the past, I can't think of a name off air, but if they've already sold 1-2 players, and you think, well, we're being linked to them, you think, well, we're not getting them because they've already lost 2 players. So
United have done it this year with Lewis Hall, haven't they? Because they were like, well, Newcastle don't need to sell anymore.
No, but that's the thing, isn't it? Aston Villa have just sold. And it's the most worst window to ever do it in because it's the World Cup window first and foremost. So players are all coming back all different times anyway. So he's got fitness absolutely everywhere, and people in different areas of fitness. But then he's losing like he's 5-6 core players. You're just like, I think it's suicidal from Aston Villa to be on the show at the moment. I do think it's a bit suicidal approach the way it's happened.
And I think it's gone beyond SCR as well because I would have thought they would have they got sanctioned by the UEFA, and of course their wages at one point were up to 97% of their turnover. But I can't believe that they still need to keep selling. They must have gone past that point now. I get Martinez at his age and his wages, you just want to get them off, but you'd have thought with Digne, Konza, Tillemans, Watkins, Morgan Rogers, 117 million. Like, I know they spent money to get players back in, but as Kieran was alluding to earlier, you can do that over 3-4 years. They must have, at some point before now, got to the point where they didn't need to sell.
Plans that they replaced them with, like, no disrespect to Garnacho, but like he's been so inconsistent at both Man United and Chelsea that I think they've seen him as more of an impact player for 20 minutes, if I'm being totally honest. Nicholas Jackson. Like, don't get me wrong, he gets himself in a lot of positions. He's very good at getting himself into positions for goal scoring opportunities. But he's just not that player, is he? I don't know. I'm not really sure about their recruitment this year. I'm interested to see how Aston Villa do. Don't get me wrong. I see there's a lot more worse teams than them in the league that they'll finish above. I'm not saying they'll be right down there, but
No,
I do
they're not
think
going down.
I think it's going to be a really hard year for Emre. And to be fair, he's achieved Champions League twice in 4 years.
Yeah,
like that's sensational for Aston Villa.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like, he's got them to a Super Cup final. He's won them the UEFA Cup. He's done an incredible job there. An absolute incredible job.
Just to add to Villa's exodus, they actually lost their assistant manager this year as well.
And that might affect Unai Emery as well.
He doesn't look happy, does he? I know they lost 4-0, but he didn't even look happy in the build-up. I know he's a miserable sod, but
I'm sorry, mate. We knew we saw.
Yeah, no, but I'm talking even before the game. He wasn't looking happy. You know,
there's a lot going on there. There's definitely a lot going on there. So I think it is going to be interesting. But I do think where we're at the moment, where they're at, I'll be very disappointed if we weren't walking away from 3 points on Monday night.
We should be walking away with 3 points.
Yeah. Right, so I think that's very much it for tonight, chat. It's an absolute superb night of talking football with you both. Thank you very much. So, firstly, thank you, Kieran.
Thanks for having me, as always.
No worries. And Dom, you're not being sacked tonight.
I've bought myself another week, have I?
You're starting next week.
Yes, it reminds me of a manager in my old career. You know, his last words to you before he went home was, "Right, try not to fuck it up while I'm gone." Come in the next morning. Yeah. Well, you did your best.
Just weren't good enough.
Yeah, it was never good enough. In life, there were 2 camps, winners and losers. Guess which one you're in? Winners? You had a 50-50. You got it wrong.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. No, honestly, mate, incredible debut. Thank you very much for coming on.
It's been a pleasure to be on. Thank you also very much for having me on. And Kieran, it's lovely to meet you as well. And, you know, I loved your maths analysis on the group chat earlier. I genuinely read that about 10 times. I got so excited.
Fantastic. Liam, have a great weekend.
You too, mate.
And
I will do.
We'll speak after a bit of game.
Yeah, I need to have a chat with you before anyway. We'll have a chat off air, obviously, about the show. I've got, I need to have a speech about that. We'll do it straight after. But obviously, thank you very much, guys. Just want to say a quick hello to DWTT, who's in the chat. Good to see you all, mate. Thank you very much, Margaret, for being on again and listening to the show. I'm glad you liked it. But yeah, look, obviously, thank you very much, guys. Hope you all have a great bank holiday weekend. It's the last bank holiday of the year, so make sure you enjoy it. And hopefully we end it with 3 points to the Arsenal. Good night.